Howdy, this is Lemmy with RevZilla TV, here to talk to you today about K&N Oil Filters. You should be looking into a K&N oil filter if you want the very best in oil protection for your motorcycle. K&N makes these for a very wide array of motorcycles. Dirt, metric, cruiser, Harley, sport. There is something for just about every bike on the road today. Installation on these is pretty easy. You're looking at a 1 out of 3 beard installation. As a matter of fact, oil changes wind up being sort of a first-time project for many novice wrenches. So K&N has been around for a long time, since the 50s in fact. These guys got their roots doing desert racing, so it's kind of funny. They're actually very attuned to the needs of an engine that's fighting off dust and dirt and needs to make big power. Those factors are ones you're facing yourself. However, the guys at K&N were facing it kind of tenfold because the desert is dry and dusty, and they're pushing those machines really to the very edge of their limits. So they've got a great background, and they also have a long company history. K&N has been around the block before. They've been around for a long time, and they're a company that's not going to let you down with their product. Now, of course, we've done the homework here to make sure that you are going to get the right part. All you have to do is use our bike finder, plug your bike information in there, and you're guaranteed to get the right part first time, every time. So in thinking how to do this product review, we realized that oil filters aren't really a sexy item. It's not stuff that gets people excited. And we always talk about getting into the blood and guts of things. Well, today, we actually are going to get into the actual literal guts of an oil filter. We're going to show you some of the insides you don't normally see when you're looking into them. So we have here a K&N filter and also a generic auto parts store filter that fits the same application. This is a motorcycle filter built by the manufacturer, and you're going to see some of the differences as we take these apart and kind of go right through things. So first things first, you're going to notice before we even get into these filters, you should see a difference on the top of these. And the difference is that here's a plain motorcycle filter, but the K&N you'll see has this 17mm nut welded to the top. This comes in handy. It makes it really easy to get a filter off. Sometimes, after repeated heating cycles, a filter can really freeze up and they're difficult to get off of there. And especially for you guys who have maybe, say, like an inline 4 where your oil filter hides behind your pipes, it can be kind of dicey getting in there if the bike is hot. You're worried about possibly, burning yourself, or you might need a special tool to get in there. It might be difficult to actually get your oil filter off of the bike. Rather than sit there and try and jam a screwdriver through it or use some sort of crazy oil filter jaw pliers, you can just slide a 17mm wrench in, give that thing a loosen, and it's going to spin right off. Makes it easy. K&N's thinking about you before they even get into the filtration of the oil. I like that. So let's get the tops off of these babies. First things first, we sawed these tops off so we could get into the blood and guts of these oil filters. Now I can feel and see this and you guys can't, but this piece, the K&N piece, weighs about twice as much as the plain piece in my right. Now part of that is due to that nut, but the other part is because this is very thick metal. I'm not sure if you guys can see it here, but the K&N is made of much thicker metal than this other competitor filter is. I could actually bend this with my fingers. I'm not sure if you guys can see this bending, but it actually bends just with finger pressure. I definitely can't do that with the K&N. It's a much thicker gauge steel. And this might not seem like a really big point, except you have to remember, a lot of times the oil filter hangs on the leading edge of the bike. For instance, if you're riding around on a Harley, or if you have, again, that inline 4 sport bike, your oil filter's right there in the breeze, 6 inches off the ground. It's catching all the rain, the muck, the pebbles, the dirt, whatever you drive through is being kicked up at that filter. So if the filter is punctured, you could potentially lose all your oil very quickly. You could wind up smoking a motor before you ever even know something is wrong. I don't really want my oil filter to be the demise of my engine. My oil filter is supposed to protect my engine. So let's get further inside of here. The spring that K&N uses, you'll see, provides nice even pressure. It's a nicely made metal spring. This piece over here on the competitor filter, you'll see, has some sheet metal stuff, and it's held in place with these plastic bits. Now I'm sure this works just fine. However, when I consider the boiling hot oil coursing through most of my engines, the thing that I want between it and my engine's longevity is not plastic. I just don't want it to be made of plastic. It's not a great material. It doesn't make me feel fantastic when it's inside my engine, and that's the only thing protecting my engine from sudden death. Personally, I'd prefer an all-metal substitute. So let's look at the actual filters themselves. So when we pull the K&N filter out, this is, I think, a pretty high quality looking piece. You'll notice metal caps on both ends. Really nice, clean cardboard, lots of filtration media here, plenty of pleats to give more surface area to pick up dirt and allow oil to get through without this clogging up and possibly starving your engine of pressure. When we open up the competitor filter, however, Again, we specified earlier, these are new. These are both new unrun filters. Look how dirty this is. And you'll notice this is made of cardboard. The whole thing is cardboard. The caps are just glued on there. Again, this isn't the sort of thing that gives me confidence. I don't know about you guys, but I spend a lot of time and money either buying or building my engines. I certainly don't want to rely on this. This is not what I want to protect those. When I consider all the time and money I have into an engine, a couple bucks on an oil filter really seems like cheap insurance to me. So getting into the cans, there's also drain back valves in here. You'll notice if you look inside there, they're two different materials. You'll see silicone being used in the K&N. However, on the competitor, that looks like rubber. And you can't see it, but there's a very big difference in the thickness. There's also a difference in how they're attached. The K&N is securely attached. The competitor, not so much. That's not so great. Let's get these out of the way. The final piece I'd like to talk to you about, again, it's just a little detail, but it seems that the devil is in the details. When we flip over the other side of the cans, you'll notice that one of these is covered and one of them is not. Filters are typically loaded into their boxes head first, so they sit upright. Now, filters being filters and not being particularly prone to freshness issues, sit on shelves for a long time. A lot of times through the various courses of distribution or what have you, these will wind up sitting in dusty warehouses, all sorts of places where there could be some contaminants. K&N spent just a moment to dip this thing in plastic and make sure you have this barrier on here so that the filter doesn't start getting dirty until you start putting your oil into it. The competitor didn't do that. Again, it's just a little thing, but it's one of those things that gives me the confidence to bolt these onto my bike and not really worry about it much beyond there. A couple other points of consideration I think are especially important for motorcycles is the amount of oil you have in your motorcycle. Motorcycles, because of what they are, don't use a ton of oil, not compared to a car. A car might have nearly a gallon of oil in it, whereas most motorcycles don't have quite so much. Some do, but not all. I know, for instance, my Honda XR sitting at home uses a quart and change. That's not very much oil. So whatever oil I do have in there, I want to trust to a filter that's going to keep it as clean as possible. Speaking of cleanliness, keep in mind, especially if you're on a Metric Cruiser, perhaps a sport bike or a dirt bike, in most situations, your engine oil is also your transmission oil. Not all, but most. That transmission oil is catching all sorts of clutch debris that comes off from you using the clutch. It's swept into the oil, and the oil filter has the job of cleaning up that oil and making sure that that stuff doesn't contaminate your engine. Again, you can trust that job to a premium oil filter or something a little more inexpensive. However, I know which side of that fence I sit on. Now, in terms of installation, we had chatted earlier about this being kind of a 1 beard out of 3 on our scale. Because of the wide range of bikes and filters out there, I can't give you specific advice for every single bike you might be working on. But you should know, if you haven't wrenched on your bike, an oil change is almost everybody's first foray into their bike maintenance, repair, and customization. If that's a little bit out of your wheelhouse, don't be afraid to get your hands on a service manual. Service manual should be able to walk you through this without much trouble, and if you're in trouble after that, you can always call up a buddy who's done it before. These aren't particularly difficult tasks to complete by yourself, and I think they're going to give you a great sense of pride once you have your bike maintained properly and running down the road. I think K&N is a really great filter. I trust my bikes to them. I really, really like them. My opinion, though, is not the only one that matters. Yours is. Click below, see what some other riders who are rocking these have to say about them. Or if you've installed one of these and you either love it or hate it, let another rider know. Help them make a decision on whether or not a K&N filter might be right for them. If you've got questions beyond that, feel free to get in touch with us. See us at RevZilla.com, or you can always call us, 877-792-9455. We'll get you a Gear Geek live on the line. I'm Lemmy. I'm out of here. Oil filters can be hard to quantify. It would have been really better if I wasn't throwing friggin' parts all over the place.